Yeah.
Green flat, maroon.
Go, all right, let's make sure Wally's visible. Well, let's line up. There we go, that's it.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Does anyone need a sound check quickly? Good. Excellent. Wonderful. Well, wonderful to be at Suncorp Stadium today with my colleague Shannon Fenterman and our wonderful team behind us from Containers for Change. Today we're celebrating a really important milestone. 5 billion containers have now gone through our container refund points across Queensland, a really fantastic milestone. This is a scheme, of course, we brought in 2018 to try and reduce the amount of bottles and cans that end up in landfill and unfortunately our environment, and instead we want them to be recycled and repurposed. So this 5 billion mark is really, really important. It shows that Queenslanders have absolutely endorsed this scheme. They're coming forward to the over 260 container refund points we have across the state to make sure that they're doing the right thing. Of course, we also know that this means $500 million back into the pockets of Queenslanders. I know lots of young kids are raising money through pocket money for this Containers for Change program. We've also got, of course, wonderful businesses and community groups who are partnering. Indooroopilly Shopping Centre, for example, is partnering with organisations like Communify, not only reducing the amount of containers that end up in landfill each year, but also making sure that that money is going to a wonderful charity delivering really, really important things for our community. So I want to put a big push on Queenslanders to continue coming forward to our container refund points. It's really important that we get behind these small businesses. These small businesses actually help us employ over 800 people across Queensland. But for the first time ever, we're now going to have these container for change refund points, these bins located at important locations like Suncorp Stadium, like Seabus, Metricon, so that footy fans on Wednesday night for the State of Origin and other games across the state can make sure that they're not only protecting our environment, but they're making sure that this money goes towards a wonderful organisation that those stadiums will choose where it goes. So I encourage all footy fans to make sure that when you're having a beer, you make sure that you put those containers into those bins. It's really important that we drive up our recycling rates and we make sure we reduce the amount of litter that ends up in our environment every year. I might hand over to Shannon now and then take questions.
Oh, thank you, Megan. And clearly we're both very excited about Wednesday night, both wearing our maroon today. And it's wonderful news that these bins will now be at Suncorp Stadium for the game. And of course, the countdown is on until the Maroons take the field here at Suncorp Stadium for the State of Origin decider. And it's a sellout game, which is fantastic. But with a sellout game, I did want to take the chance to remind Queenslanders to be very wary of ticket scalping. When you have a sellout game, it means there are much more likely to be ticket scalpers out there. And my message today to Queenslanders, please do your research. The last thing any of us want to see is genuine footy fans being ripped off, paying too much for tickets, and then facing hefty fines, or worse, being turned away at the gate because their tickets are invalid. For games here at Suncorp Stadium, of course, it is unlawful to on-sell or resell a ticket for more than 10% of the original ticket price. It's also illegal to buy tickets for more than 10% of the original price. So please do your research. There are hefty fines for people that on-sell or resell tickets, thousands of dollars if you're reselling for more than that 10% of the original price, and over $700 if you buy a ticket. So please do your research. We don't want to see any genuine footy fans paying too much or being ripped off through ticket scalping. I also today wanted to just make some comments about the shocker of a week that David Crisafulli, the Leader of the Opposition, has had. And of course it started with him committing to giving a 5-year term to the chair of the CCC, and then his own LNP members on the committee voting against him and refusing to give the chair a 5-year term. Then we had the CCC report handed down, which found into the Integrity Commissioner's office that there was no raid, there was no seizure, there was no wiping of confidential information. And of course, David Crisafulli and his team have still not apologised for misleading Queenslanders for many, many months. And that's despite the CCC saying that a refusal to correct the record on this would undermine the public's confidence. Then 2 days ago, we had the Leader of the Opposition again, David Crisafulli, refuse to say whether his party would wind back abortion laws in this state, despite being asked 6 times by a journalist what his position and what his party's position is, he refused to say whether or not, if he was elected, abortion would once again be a crime here in Queensland. And given what's happening in the US, I and every other woman in Queensland is pretty terrified by his inability to say what the LNP's position is. And then today, we see that the LNP leader, despite saying he wants to see more women in Parliament, not giving a position on whether he supports quotas. So this weekend is the LNP convention, and it is a test for David Crisafulli. It is a test for his leadership. Will he finally deliver through his party what he says he's going to do, or will he succumb to the LNP dinosaurs in his party? He is such a weak leader. He won't say what he actually believes or what he's going to do, and his own party members vote against him. You can't be the captain if you're not going to make the tough calls. You can't lead Queensland if you're not going to lead your own party. That's some good skills. That's all right. It was good timing. We're happy to take questions. You've done that before. Any questions? Look, absolutely, that is something that the government will look at. Of course, we've had an apology to those Queenslanders who have experienced forced adoption. Having been once the Child Safety Minister and the Minister responsible for that portfolio area, I have met with a number of victims of forced adoption, and I understand the pain that they have been through. I understand that is something the Minister and the Department are now looking at. I understand that's something that the Minister is looking at.
Are we able to ask about COVID today?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so what are we seeing?
Do you want to do the COVID update?
Yeah.
What are we seeing at the moment with COVID and the rate?
Yeah, so I can advise today that we've got 5,315 new COVID cases, including 3,728 positive rat tests. In terms of hospital care, there's currently 614 COVID patients in public hospitals, including 14 in ICU. There's 105 COVID patients in private hospitals, including 1 in ICU, and 92 influenza patients in hospitals, including 2 in ICU. So of course we know that our hospitals are seeing that increased pressure as a result of COVID and influenza, and that's why we need to make sure that we do our best in making sure that everyone is coming forward and getting vaccinated, whether that be for the flu or your COVID injection. Yeah, well, of course, all of our stadiums, all of our big event organisations make sure that they're planning to make sure they're as safe as possible. But the best thing Queenslanders can do is come forward and get a vaccination. We can make sure that we limit the pressure on our hospitals by playing our part, coming forward and getting your free flu vaccination, or coming forward and making sure that you get your booster.
The federal government has come out and said that if something isn't done health measure-wise by states and employers, we're likely to see a wave that will be similar to what we saw in January. Does this affect the implication of mask mandates coming back in, what the state government intends on doing?
As has always been the case, we continue to listen to the advice of our Chief Health Officer, and of course those collective meetings at a national level will continue to listen to the expert advice. But again, the best thing we can all do as Queenslanders and as Australians is come forward and get vaccinated.
We've got something like, when it comes to health workers, around 10% of the staff away on COVID pandemic leave. We have schools starting back. Are there any concerns that teachers could be hit by that same level, 10% of teachers out across states?
Yeah, well, all of our departments, all of our schools are obviously planning to make sure that we can deal with the uplift in COVID cases and the uplift in influenza cases that we're seeing. They make sure that they have planning in place. But again, the best thing we can all do as Queenslanders is get vaccinated to try and continue to implement all of those other measures that we were doing so well during COVID, using hand sanitizer, social distancing where possible. There are things that we can do to minimise the spread. We need to do that. But of course, we know that every industry, every business, every department needs to make sure that we're planning, and that's what we continue to do. I don't have those figures on me, sorry. No.
In terms of, I guess, the next week here, so Wednesday, just trying to gauge, I guess, how concerned the government is about this next wave of vaccinated. But I guess, how likely is it we might see a last minute or some sort of change to restrictions before state origin? Is it likely that we might have different rules for state origin?
Well, look, as has always been the case, we listen to the advice of the Chief Health Officer. We need to make sure that we put in place consistency. We're continuing to work with colleagues in other states to make sure where we can there is alignment and harmonisation. But, there's nothing preventing people from voluntarily putting on a mask. I was just at the airport yesterday. There were people all throughout the terminal who had masks on voluntarily. So there are things that we can all do to try and minimise the spread, particularly if you have health issues. We encourage you to make sure that you're being cautious and you're doing what you can to prevent yourself from getting COVID or influenza.
We've got a big couple of weeks coming with events. What kind of boost does that bring to tourism in Queensland?
Yeah, it's a bumper of a week for footy fans here in Queensland. We've got 3 great games being held right here at Suncorp. I'm hopeful that we see some great results on Wednesday, but also, UK's had a pretty rough week. Let's hope that continues. This is fantastic for our local economy. We know that not only is this really important for footy fans to be able to come to stadiums like this, it means that it's putting money back into the pockets of small businesses, pubs, clubs, hotels, people coming here to stay, and that's why we continue to work with our stadiums to draw major events, because we know it's such a good economic draw card. What was that, sorry? Possibly.
Just on another topic,
Yeah.
where you've had something like 2 or 3 whales caught off the coast of the Gold Coast and up in the Sunshine Coast as well. Is there any consideration to removing shark nets
Yeah.
or drum lines from technology?
Yeah, so we are trialling some new technology at the moment. Obviously that falls under my colleague Minister Furner's portfolio, but we continue to look at what new innovative ways that we can try and deter sharks from areas that we know lots of people enjoy swimming, but obviously this is their habitat, and so we need to look at how we can protect our wildlife as well. So, I absolutely understand why people are really passionate about wanting to protect our marine life, and that's why we need to do these trials. It's why we need to see if they're successful, and then if they are, we can look at expanding them to other areas.
We're only at the start of migration season and we've already seen quite a large number of whales caught these nets.
Yeah.
Do you think something needs to be done immediately to address that?
Yeah, and that's why we're doing those trials at the moment. I look forward to seeing the results from them. Of course, if there are ways that we can put in place more innovative solutions that have less harm on our marine life, then that's something that we should absolutely look at. But we need to make sure that they are fit for purpose and that they work. And so that's why we need to look at the end results of those trials. Excellent.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.